The explosion shattered the peaceful Friday evening outside Temple Beth Shalom, sending glass and metal fragments across the parking lot like deadly confetti. David Rosen dropped his prayer book and sprinted toward the burning wreckage of his Honda Civic, his heart hammering against his ribs as orange flames licked at the sky and the acrid smell of gasoline filled his nostrils. "Max!" he screamed, throwing himself against the twisted metal of what had been the rear door. "Max!" The German shepherd's whimpers came from inside the inferno, weak and fading. David clawed at the wreckage, his hands bleeding as he tried to pry open the mangled doorframe. "Sir, get back!" A firefighter grabbed his shoulders, pulling him away from the flames. "It's too dangerous." David fought against the man's grip, watching helplessly as the flames consumed everything. The whimpering stopped. Through the smoke and chaos, he noticed something on what remained of the rear windshield crude letters scratched into the glass, barely visible through the soot. "They remember you in Shiraz." His blood turned to ice. 20 minutes later, David stood beside the smoldering remains of his car, staring at the message while police officers took photos and asked questions he couldn't answer. Detective Maria Santos approached with a notepad. "Mr. Rosen, do you have any idea who might have done this? Any enemies, disputes, anything like that?" David shook his head, still staring at the words. "No, nothing like that." It was a lie, and he knew it. But the truth would get more people killed. "What about this message? They remember you in Shiraz, does that mean anything to you?" "No," David said again. "I've never been to Iran." Another lie. He'd been to Shiraz twice. The second time, he'd left 3 Iranian Revolutionary Guard officers dead in a safe house basement. Detective Santos studied his face. "Mr. Rosen, I have to tell you, this looks like a targeted attack. The bomb was sophisticated, professional. This wasn't some random act of vandalism." David nodded numbly. "I understand. We're going to need you to think hard about anyone who might want to hurt you. Former colleagues, business associates, anyone with a grudge." "I worked for the State Department," David said. "Cultural attaché, mostly paperwork." The lies came easily now. Practiced over 15 years of civilian life. The truth that he'd spent 8 years with Israeli intelligence, specializing in deep cover operations against Iranian targets, would only complicate things. Detective Santos handed him her card. "If you think of anything, call me immediately. In the meantime, we're going to have patrol cars in your neighborhood for the next few days." David pocketed the card and walked home through the quiet streets of Beverly Hills, his mind racing. The message was clear. Someone knew about Operation Nightfall. Someone knew about Shiraz. And now they were coming for the team. At home, he went straight to his study and opened a secure laptop hidden behind false panels in his desk. The encrypted communication system he'd sworn never to use again came to life with 3 blinking messages. The first was from Tel Aviv, 12 hours old. Package compromised. Protocol 7 in effect. Protocol 7 meant total disavowal. No backup. No extraction. No contact. The second message was from Miami, 6 hours old. "Danny's gone. Car accident on I-95. They made it look real." Danny Weiss. His spotter in Tehran. 43 years old. 2 kids. The third message was from Phoenix, 2 hours old. "Sarah didn't make it. House fire. I'm going dark." Sarah Chen, their communications specialist. She'd saved all their lives at least twice. David's hands trembled as he typed a response to the Phoenix number. "Max is dead too. Bomb in L.A. Meeting Protocol 6. Griffith Observatory. Tomorrow, 300. Protocol 6 meant emergency rendezvous. If any of them were still alive, they'd be there. The next morning, David arrived at Griffith Observatory at 2:45 a.m. The parking lot was empty, except for a single black sedan. As he approached, the driver's door opened, and a tall man in his 50s stepped out. "You look like hell, Rosen." David recognized the voice immediately. Michael Torres, their team leader, former Navy SEAL, recruited by Mossad in 2005. The man who taught him everything about staying alive in enemy territory. "Mike, thank God you're alive." They embraced briefly, both men scanning the darkness for threats. "Any word from the others?" David asked. "Peters is dead. Skiing accident in Colorado. Chen burned up in Phoenix. Weiss died in Miami. That leaves you, me, and maybe Rodriguez, if he's still breathing. What about the Israelis? They're hanging us out to dry? Mike's laugh was bitter. Protocol 7, brother. We're ghosts. Officially, we never existed. Then who's doing this? How do they know about Shiraz? That's what we need to figure out. But first, we need to get somewhere safe. They drove in Mike's sedan to a safe house in the San Fernando Valleja nondescript ranch home that looked like every other house on the block. Inside, the walls were lined with maps, surveillance photos, and documents. I've been tracking the hits, Mike said, spreading photos across a table. Danny in Miami, Sarah in Phoenix, Peters in Colorado. All different methods, all made to look accidental. But there's a pattern. David studied the photos. What kind of pattern? Timeline. They're working their way through the team systematically. Danny was first because he was the easiest target lived alone, predictable routine. Sarah was next because she was isolated in Phoenix. You were supposed to be third, but something went wrong. Max saved my life, David said quietly. He started barking right before I got to the car. Made me stop and look around. That's when I saw the wire. Mike nodded grimly. So they know we're onto them, which means they'll accelerate the timeline. Who has our real names? Our locations? That's the million-dollar question. The operation was compartmentalized. Only 6 people knew the full team roster. Us 4, plus Rodriguez and Rachel. The name hung in the air like a curse. Rachel Navan, former IDF intelligence officer, David's handler, his lover. The woman who'd recruited him, trained him, and shared his bed for 3 years before the operation went bad. Where is she now? David asked. That's what I've been trying to find out. She disappeared after Dubai. No contact with Tel Aviv, no digital footprint, nothing. You think she's dead? Mike's expression was grim. I think she's our leak. David felt the world tilt beneath his feet. That's impossible. Rachel would never... Wake up, Rosen. 3 of our guys are dead, and someone's hunting the rest of us with inside information. Who else could it be? David's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He showed it to Mike, who nodded. Answer it. Speaker. David swiped to accept. Hello? David. The voice was female, slightly accented. French, maybe. We need to talk. Who is this? Someone who knows what happened in Shiraz. Someone who knows why your friends are dying. Mike was already tracing the call on his laptop, triangulating the signal. What do you want? David asked. Meet me at the Santa Monica Pier, 1 hour. Come alone or your daughter dies. The line went dead. David stared at the phone, his blood turning to ice. They know about Emma, he whispered. Mike looked up from his laptop. The call came from downtown. They're here. In the city. David was already moving toward the door. I have to go. It's a trap, David. You know it's a trap. They have my daughter. Mike grabbed his arm. Your daughter is at Stanford. She's safe. You don't know that. Mike's laptop chimed. He looked at the screen, and his face went pale. David, you need to see this. On the screen was a live video feed. Emma Rosen, 22 years old, sitting in what looked like a hotel room. She was unharmed, but clearly frightened. Daddy? Her voice came through the speakers. These people said they'll let me go if you do what they want. The video cut to black. David was out the door before Mike could stop him. The Santa Monica Pier was nearly deserted at 4 a.m. David walked past the closed carnival rides and shuttered food stands, his hand resting on the Glock 19 concealed beneath his jacket. The ocean breeze carried the smell of salt and seaweed. A woman sat alone on a bench near the end of the pier. As David approached, she stood and turned toward him. She was young, maybe 30, with dark hair and olive skin. Beautiful, but with eyes that had seen too much violence. You're not Iranian, David said. Very observant, her accent was indeed French. My name is Amélie Dubois. I work for the DGSE, French Foreign Intelligence. This was getting more complicated. What does French intelligence want with a retired State Department employee? Amélie smiled coldly. We both know what you really did for a living, Monsieur Rosen. just as we know what you did in Shiraz. I don't know what you're talking about. The Revolutionary Guard officer you killed in that basement? Mehdi Hosseini? He was my asset, my best source inside the Iranian nuclear program. David felt pieces clicking into place. So you're here for revenge? I'm here to stop a war. Your little assassination squad has compromised a 10-year operation. Because of what you did in Shiraz, we lost our only window into Iran's nuclear capabilities. Where's my daughter? Safe. For now. But that depends entirely on your cooperation. What do you want? Emily reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. Inside are new identities for you and your daughter. Passports, credit cards, driver's licenses, everything you need to disappear. And, in exchange, you forget about your dead friends. You forget about Shiraz. You disappear, and we'll stop hunting the rest of your team. David stared at the envelope. You're the ones killing us? No. But we know who is. And we can make them stop. Who? That's not your concern anymore. Take the deal, Monsieur Rosen. It's the only way you and your daughter survive this. David's phone buzzed. A text message with a photo. Emma, still in the hotel room, but now with a man in a mask standing behind her chair. You have 1 hour to decide, Emily said. After that, my associates become impatient. She walked away, leaving David alone on the pier with the envelope in his hands. 45 minutes later, David was back at the safe house. Mike was hunched over his laptop, multiple screens displaying surveillance footage and satellite images. I found Rodriguez, Mike said without looking up. He's in a safe house in Cabo, still breathing, but barely. Someone tried to poison him yesterday. The French offered me a deal, David said. New identities for me and Emma in exchange for forgetting all this. You trust them? I don't trust anyone anymore. Mike finally looked up. David, I found something else. Look at this. On the screen was a surveillance photo from Dubai, taken the night their operation went bad. It showed Rachel Navan meeting with a man in an expensive suit. Recognize him? Mike asked. David squinted at the image. The man was older, distinguished, with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses. Something about him was familiar. I've seen him before, but where? Mike clicked to another image, a more recent photo of the same man, taken outside the Iranian consulate in Geneva. His name is Dr. Hassan Rezai. He's the deputy director of Iran's nuclear program. Also happens to be Mehdi Hosseini's older brother. David felt the blood drain from his face. The man we killed in Shiraz. Rachel's been meeting with him for the past 2 years. Regular contact, always in neutral countries. Switzerland, Austria, Turkey. She's selling us out. Worse than that, she's been feeding Iranian intelligence, our identities, our locations, our families, everything. David's phone buzzed again. Another text. Time's up, Pier. Now. I have to go, David said. They have Emma. Wait. Mike pulled a small device from his desk drawer. GPS tracker. If this goes bad, I'll be able to find you. David clipped the device inside his jacket pocket. If I don't make it back. You'll make it back. We both will. And then we're going to find Rachel. The pier was busier now, with early morning joggers and fishermen starting their day. David found Emily in the same spot, but this time she wasn't alone. 2 men in dark suits flanked her, their hands resting inside their jackets. Have you decided? She asked. I want to see my daughter first. Live video, real time. Amelie nodded to one of her associates, who produced a tablet. The screen showed Emma in the same hotel room, but now she was reading a newspaper with today's date clearly visible. She's unharmed, Amelie said. She will remain so as long as you cooperate. Where's Rachel Navan? Amelie's eyebrows rose slightly. I'm impressed. You've been busy. Where is she? That information isn't part of our deal. It is now. David reached inside his jacket, causing both guards to tense. He pulled out the envelope of new identities and held it over the pier railing. Tell me where Rachel is, or these go in the ocean. Emily studied his face for a long moment. You're not going to disappear, are you? You're going to keep digging until you find the truth. Where is she? Paris. She's been living in Paris under the name Sophie Laurent. Works as a translator for various international organizations. Address? Apartment 4B, 47 Rue de la Paix. But Monsieur Rosen, if you go after her, you'll be walking into a trap. She knows you're alive. She's expecting you." David pocketed the envelope. "Then I won't disappoint her." "What about your daughter?" "You said you're not the ones killing us. That means you're not the ones who took Emma either. You're just middlemen, trying to clean up someone else's mess." Amelie's composure cracked slightly. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe. But it's my mistake to make." David walked away, leaving Amelie and her guards standing alone on the pier. 2 days later, David stood outside a cafe in the Marais district of Paris, watching a woman through the window. She was older than he remembered, her dark hair now touched with gray, but her profile was unmistakable. Rachel Navoner, Sophie Lawrence sat, alone at a corner table, sipping coffee and reading Le Figaro. She looked up as David entered the cafe, and their eyes met across the crowded room. She didn't seem surprised to see him. "Hello, David," she said as he approached her table. "I was wondering when you'd find me." "Hello, Rachel. It's Sophie now." David sat down across from her. "How many of our team are dead because of you?" "3. Maybe 4 by now." Her casual tone made his blood boil. "Why?" "Because the world is more complicated than you understand. The operation in Shiraz wasn't just about killing Iranian nuclear scientists. It was about preventing a war. By betraying your own people?" Rachel laughed bitterly. "My own people? David, I haven't been Israeli intelligence for 5 years. I work for someone much more important now. Iranian intelligence. Among others, I work for anyone who pays me to prevent nuclear wars." David's hand moved toward his concealed weapon. "You sold us out for money?" "I sold you out to save millions of lives. The man you killed in Shiraz, Mehdi Hosseini, was a moderate. He was working to slow down Iran's nuclear program from the inside. His death accelerated their timeline by 2 years. So you decided to get revenge by having us all killed?" "I decided to give his brother the closure he needed to continue Mehdi's work. Hassan Rezai is now the only thing standing between Iran and a working nuclear weapon." David stared at her in disbelief. "You're insane." "I'm pragmatic. Sometimes good people have to die to prevent worse things from happening." "What about Emma? What about my daughter?" Rachel's expression softened slightly. "Emma is safe. She was never in any real danger. The video was staged." "You mean?" "Your daughter is at Stanford, taking her finals. She has no idea any of this is happening." David felt a mixture of relief and rage. "You manipulated me. I gave you motivation to find the truth. Just like I'm giving Hassan Rezai the motivation to continue his brother's work. By having us killed. By showing him that justice exists, that the people who murdered his brother face consequences." David pulled out his gun and placed it on the table between them. Several cafe patrons noticed and began moving toward the exits. "You're going to call off your Iranian friends," he said quietly. "You're going to end this." Rachel looked at the gun without fear. "I can't do that, David. It's already in motion." "Then I'll stop it myself." "How? You don't even know where they are." "I'll start with you." Rachel smiled sadly. "Killing me won't save your friends. In fact, it will make things worse. Hassan needs to believe that justice was served completely." "What are you talking about?" "I'm the last target, David. After me, it's over. Hassan gets his revenge, and the surviving members of your team get to live." David's finger tightened on the trigger. "You're lying." "Am I? Think about it. How did you find me so easily? Why did the French agent give you my location? Why am I sitting here in the open waiting for you?" The realization hit him like a physical blow. "You wanted me to find you. I needed you to find me. Hassan's people have been watching this cafe for 3 days. When you kill me, they'll have their closure. The cycle ends." David looked around the cafe. It was nearly empty now, but he could see men in dark clothing positioned at strategic points outside. "You're sacrificing yourself." "I'm finishing what I started. Mehdi Hosseini was a good man who died for trying to prevent a nuclear war. His death can't be meaningless." "What about our team? What about the men who died?" "They died as soldiers, David, just like you're about to." David's confusion must have shown on his face, because Rachel's expression became almost pitiful. "You don't think I arranged all this just so you could kill me and walk away, do you? Hassan's people are positioned outside. The moment you pull that trigger, they'll storm in here. You'll die, too. But the cycle will end? The cycle will end. David stared at the gun in his hands, then at the woman who had trained him, loved him, and ultimately betrayed him. There has to be another way. There is. You can walk away, disappear with your new identity. Let Hassan's people kill me quietly, without the satisfaction of seeing you die too. But your friends will keep dying until every member of the team is dead. Why are you doing this? Because I'm tired, David. I'm tired of playing games with people's lives. I'm tired of choosing between bad options and worse options. This is the only choice that leads to something resembling peace. David stood up, the gun still in his hand. Around the cafe, he could see Hassan's people moving into position. I loved you, he said. I know. I loved you too. David raised the gun, pointing it at Rachel's chest. She closed her eyes and smiled. The first shot came from outside, shattering the cafe window. David spun toward the sound, his military training taking over automatically. More shots erupted from multiple directions. Hassan's people were firing into the cafe, but not at David and Rachel. They were firing at each other. Through the chaos, David saw Mike Torres crash through the rear window of the cafe, assault rifle in hand, cutting down Iranian agents with practiced precision. Move! Mike shouted. We've got about 30 seconds. David grabbed Rachel's arm, hauling her toward the back exit. She struggled against him. No, you don't understand. This ruins everything. Shut up and run. They burst through the rear exit into an alley where a black motorcycle waited, engine running. Mike was already mounting the bike. Get on. David pushed Rachel onto the bike behind Mike and climbed on last. The motorcycle roared to life, speeding through the narrow Paris streets as gunfire echoed behind them. 20 minutes later, they were in a safe house in Montmartre. Rachel sat in a chair, her hands zip-tied behind her back, while Mike checked his equipment. How did you find us? David asked. GPS tracker, remember? Plus, I had some help from our friends at Langley. Turns out the CIA has been tracking Hassan Rezai for months. The CIA? Operation Nightfall wasn't just an Israeli operation, David. It was joint. CIA provided intelligence and logistics. When our people started dying, they got interested. David turned to Rachel. Did you know about CIA involvement? Rachel's expression was resigned. I suspected. It doesn't matter now. You've destroyed everything I worked for. Good, Mike said. Because Hassan Rezai isn't the moderate you think he is. CIA intelligence says he's been accelerating Iran's nuclear program, not slowing it down. His brother Mehdi was the real moderate. Rachel's face went pale. That's impossible. Hassan's been using his brother's death as justification for pushing harder toward a nuclear weapon. Every time one of our team died, he used it as evidence that the West was declaring war on Iran. You're lying. Mike pulled out a tablet, showing surveillance footage. This is Hassan Rezai yesterday, meeting with North Korean nuclear scientists in Beijing. Does this look like someone trying to prevent nuclear proliferation? Rachel stared at the footage, her face crumbling as the implications sank in. I was played, she whispered. We all were, David said. The question is, what do we do now? Mike's phone buzzed. He looked at it and grinned. Problem solved. CIA just picked up Hassan and his entire network. Turns out they've been planning this for months, waiting for him to make contact with his foreign assets. What about the rest of our team? Rodriguez is safe. They got to him just in time. Peters, Weiss, and Chen. Mike shook his head. They're gone. David looked at Rachel, who was staring at the floor in defeat. What happens to her? That's not our decision anymore. CIA wants to debrief her. After that, Mike shrugged. She's got a lot of blood on her hands. 2 hours later, David stood outside the safe house as CIA operatives led Rachel away in handcuffs. She paused as she passed him. I'm sorry, David. I thought I was saving the world. The road to hell, David replied, is paved with good intentions, I know. She was loaded into a black SUV and driven away. David never saw her again. 6 months later, David sat in a small cafe in Tel Aviv, reading the morning newspaper. The headline was about a major breakthrough in Iranian nuclear negotiations. The arrest of Hassan Rezai had exposed a network of hardliners who had been sabotaging peace talks for years. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Café Noir, corner of Dizengoff and Ben Yehuda. 1 hour. David arrived at the specified location to find a woman waiting at a corner table. She was young, Asian, with short black hair and intelligent eyes. "Mr. Rosen, my name is Jennifer Wu. I work for a private security firm. I'm retired." "So I've heard. But retirement doesn't always take." She slid a thick envelope across the table. "There's a situation developing in Southeast Asia. Nuclear materials have gone missing from a facility in Myanmar. We think they're being sold to the highest bidder." David stared at the envelope without touching it. "I told you, I'm retired. The materials were stolen by a group calling itself the New Revolutionary Guard. They're led by someone you might recognize." She placed a surveillance photo on the table. David's blood ran cold. The man in the photo was Hassan Rezai. That's impossible. He was arrested 6 months ago. He was released 3 weeks ago. Diplomatic immunity. Turns out he had friends in high places we didn't know about. David picked up the envelope, feeling its weight. "What's the job?" "Find him. Stop him. Before he sells enough plutonium to level a city." "What makes you think I'm interested?" Jennifer Wu smiled. "Because Hassan Rezai sent a message with the stolen materials. He said to tell the ghost of Shiraz that the game isn't over." David opened the envelope. Inside were photos, intelligence reports, and travel documents. At the bottom was a handwritten note. "He knows you're alive, and he's coming for you anyway.